How are we doing, everybody, and welcome to The Fields. This is your host, Professor Hefe. My guest today, I've got my first returning guest. He was with us on Season 1. He's back now for Season 3, Mr. Cory Sanson. Cory, thank you so much for being on the program, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it, Jeff.
Absolutely. Field State family right here, this gentleman. His products have been on our shelves since day one. Anytime you see an Instagram post, Field State Fluorescent is right at the top. That's how tight we are with these guys. Cory, by the way, is the co-owner of Cúrador. Cúrador is the umbrella that houses the products Headchange, Safe Bet pre-rolls, and AIRO cartridges. These little boys right here, and I'm going to... Yes. Yes.
Love it. Love the function. Love those.
Well, I actually want to talk about these first because
Sure.
when you were on in Season 1, we didn't get a chance to talk about AIRO.
100%.
So I'd like to know, how did you get the contract, man? I mean, was there a ton of competition for this?
Man, no, it's kind of weird, serendipitous. So we're preparing, we're planning, we're doing all of our building design, how the lab flow is going to go. I'm part of a pretty large extraction community, Future 4200. It's a online forum where a lot of folks in the industry go share knowledge, insight, know-how. I'd put a couple feelers out there that we were looking for potential candidates in Missouri and to work for us and in a lab setting. And an individual reached out to me by the name of Eric Hoon. Eric Hoon, RIP, was a really, really awesome individual that kind of saw the energy that we were willing to bring. And he told his team, he was like, hey, man, put a bet on these dudes. These guys are going to do it. So we actually locked in the AIRO contract before we even had an ATO, you know what I mean? And really just based off of I kind of think they saw the energy and what we were doing. It's a no-brainer is to use it as a safe bet with AIRO because they do really well in a lot of other states. Being a MIP, I think I talked about it at the first episode, we were really unsure of the quality of cannabis that we were going to get. And being an avid concentrate user, somebody who really has an affinity for more like terpene-rich, exotic, true to plant medicines, I think that the initial thought was that we were going to only be able to score like trim or stuff that we could...
Because there's a specific recipe that you have to follow. This isn't your company. This is somebody
exactly.
else's.
So we were really, really like unsure on what it was going to be. They were really confident that no matter what the state was going to be, that they were going to be able to help us. We're really fortunate to align partnerships really early on with a lot of awesome cultivators and a lot of retail partners. So it made that an easy kind of transition for us, but it's a cool product, man. I think that for me, I used AIRO when it was Indigo Pro back in 2017 when I was going out to Colorado. I really enjoyed the function. It was really cool feeling something vibrate. And
I love the function. I don't mean to interrupt, man, but this is about as simple as a device as I've ever used. I mean, magnetic connection, you just pop in, boom, it's in place. There you go. It'll stand so you can make sure the cart is full to the bottom for when you pick it up, and USB charging in the bottom. And when you get low on battery power, you get a little second vibration afterwards to let you know it's running low. I love these things. Yeah.
So they're and the team that we've worked with, shout out Fred Barton if you're watching. He has been a real help for us here in Missouri. Getting everybody on board with the hardware, familiar with the program. AIRO does really well by their retail partners. I think you could probably attest to it. They want to make sure everybody knows, has tried the hardware. And as you said, it's really simple. You can maybe have only tried cannabis a couple of times in your life, and you can be able to utilize that.
It's a good entry point.
Exactly.
Matter of fact, when we started out, we just had the distillate line. Now we brought pretty much everything in, including the CBD ones. And I was kind of instrumental in that because a lot of our patients, when I have face-to-face interactions, I can smell when they've just finished a cigarette.
Right.
And as a former smoker, I would like to help these people transition away. So with this, you get the whole hand-to-mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Inhale, exhale that you are used to with cigarettes. But if you get the CBD, you're not staying high all the day long. You're just getting that medicine that you need and that hand-to-mouth that you need.
Yeah. The ratio products, I think, were surprisingly one of my favorites as well. I think, I smoke a ton of concentrate, but there are moments in time where I have just been in a bind, and that was there, and it surprisingly did the job. You know what I mean? So I like AIRO a lot, man. Really, really happy with the decision, and I think it's going to do well for us for the future.
Now, these guys, you have to follow their strict recipe. Yep. But with Headchange, you get to play around.
Yes.
Do you consider yourself an artist?
With Headchange, maybe not all the time. I think it's a collective.
Don't be humble.
We're a collective. So I'd say there's a collective. Headchange is more of like an art community. It's a cool way to look at it. A lot of people ask us, like, who thinks of the strain names? Who thinks of the hash notes? Like, why? Why? It's everybody. So I do a lot of the like initial strain naming convection, but like it'll definitely, I'll be torn between two things, and I'll throw it to the group, and we'll collectively sometimes shoot out something that's not either two, but it's like a piece of that. And so
what are those sessions like? Do you guys just sit around ripping dabs until you come up with the name?
No. So it's a little bit of both. So in the beginning, definitely it was a lot for the hash note sessions. That's what a lot of it was, is R&D, figuring out what these nodes were like. I think for us, identifying something that is tangible, something that a human being can associate with a sense, like, oh,
you mean a scent, something for the nose?
So any senses, smell, taste, feel, any sort of sense. And so more primarily the nose and the mouth, palate, but like even sometimes just visually, bright. We'll see that generally whenever it's something like gassy or something earthy or like a GMO, one of my favorite analogies is the GMO. So usually if we get something that's got a GMO across, it's got that real funky, garlicky, and I usually make the analogy, it smells like grandma's closet. Everybody was just so like, what? It's like, because you can smell this mothball, you can imagine opening up like your granny's closet and being like, Jesus, oh my God, this smells so bad. And it's repulsive, but people want it. And that is what, like, I was so shocked. I was like, I'm into the sound of like a skunk in a like dank woodshed.
It's familiarity. You use the closet analogy. I've used that too with my patients. I said it reminds me of my grandfather's coat, a coat that was stuck at the back of the closet.
Yep.
It just has that scent to it, and feeds the soul.
Yeah, so I guess to answer, we would try these, and Carl would say, man, I'm really feeling this one's got a really ripe mango with just a hint of like banana. And then Sarah would say, it's a little more like, pineapple to me with like a strawberry finish. And maybe together that came out to like a pineapple strawberry smoothie after, in a new car. We've done so many things that also just kind of remind you to not take everything so seriously all the time. It's really cool sometimes to laugh about it. Like, yes, this is medicine. Yes, we want something that will help you, but sometimes part of that medicine is not taking it so clinically serious. In the
sometimes you need to see something that says pink peppercorn Faygo on it to go, you know what? I think I'm going to have a little fun with this.
Yes, exactly. And so, that's how we get to the hash notes. Generally, with cultivars, blending, strain, what we do is pre-blend based on just history. We have a pharmacopoeia of cultivar. Anybody that has worked with us on the retail side has seen this, and it's pretty neat. It's pretty cool. It's just their genetic library. It's got all of our genotypes, all of the subspecies, the testing results, so we can see historically, like, hey, Orange Velvet performed at like 7% terp. So if we see a dip in that, we can, look at it and notice why. But more importantly, it's just historical data of why our stuff and how it's made, why it's comprised. So when we're going through that selection process, just either through years of experience and working with different cultivars, or having just like a brief understanding of the genetic makeup, we'll make a selection and really try to curate something that complements each other. Or I am a really big fan of doing really complex nodes. So I will sometimes take something with a really citrus palate and then match it with a totally gassy GMO. So the inhale maybe and the nose is all citrus, but the exhale is gas, And so it creates like this effect that you're really getting a wide spread of wide kind of range of terpenes that.
What's your favorite terp to work with?
I don't know, man. I switch a lot. So I don't really go with isolated terpenes. I've noticed that anything that has limonene in it generally works out more consistently for me when it's the dominant terpene.
As an extractor.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I guess more as a patient, like somebody who uses it.
For extraction, though?
No, with hydrocarbon, what we do primarily right now with Headchange, like on our sauce carts and stuff, it is, I wouldn't say like one terpene profile performs better. It's more of the affinity. What I see in the market is in the summertime, our citrus strains kill it. And in the fall and winter, our gassier, cakier strains. And I don't know if the name or the smells and like wanting to hibernate versus wanting to like be out and expressive. I can't really say. What I can say about the cannabis journey for myself is that it's constantly changing, and having the availability to be prepared for those changes is what I've always looked for. So, in terms of extraction, there isn't like a specific cultivar for hydrocarbons that is yielding better. We just generally try to have a really diverse profile. So, our portfolio rather, so that when that time comes and that patient is like, hey, I've tried like 4 5 different gassy ones, it's not working with me. Maybe one of these 4 or 5 citrus leaning or cakier or whatever that spectrum is, that diversity and that variety is really what we look for, more so than like this one was the best. It yielded,
Let's talk about some variety of products.
Yeah.
When I've got a patient approach me at the vape case and they say, what have you got? I always rattle this list off. I say, we've got distillate, we've got live resin, we've got live sauce, and we've got live rosin. Now, I'm going to explain to you how I explain to them how those products are made. I want you to tell me if there's anything I need to add, subtract, if I'm even passing on correct information, which hopefully I am. So, for distillate, I say that's usually used a lot of air-dried cannabis. Oxidation happens, you lose moisture, terps, and cannabinoids, but it is still a fine product to work with. However, myself, I feel a little sensitivity in my nostrils using a distillate product, almost like I got water up my nose. A live resin product, totally different, because they flash freeze the product as soon as it's harvested. So there's more moisture, more terpenes, more cannabinoids to work with, makes for a more flavorful product. Live sauce is where you guys specialize in, and the most I can say is that you just do a better job at extracting terpenes from the run. And then live rosin is essentially hash in a vape cart because it is solventless extraction. How'd I do?
I would say that if I was a patient that is like asking you the question, I think that you covered a pretty good basis. Me and I guess with Headchange, we're like the technical guys. We're gonna say, oh, hold on, man. We do a little more than that. But you're dead on. Distillate, it's linear. The product isn't necessarily bad. It's just only really representing one cannabinoid, THC. You're going to get a pretty linear high. And that's really more what I expect.
Linear meaning?
When I'm thinking linear, I'm thinking there's a spectrum of cannabinoids, right? There's CBD, CBN, CBG, CBC, THCV, CBDA, THCA, D9, D8, et cetera. The list is just growing. Every day, scientists are discovering new compounds. We're finding new ways to measure them. There's different flavonoids, terpenoids, all of these things that create this sphere of effect, right? So when they're talking about full spectrum, I always think of like just taking a bud and everything that is inside of it, pulling it out, and you've just got this sphere of everything you want, nothing undesirable, everything you want. And that's all
live, and that's live resin.
It doesn't have to be live resin. That's just a full spectrum product. Distillate linearly really only represents like just THC.
Okay.
So there's just one dominant cannabinoid. So you're really only going to feel a linear high. Like you're going to kind of just feel THC high. For me, what I actually experienced when I smoke distillate more than anything is a lot of anxiety. When you just smoke THC, there isn't a lot to like round it off. So you're kind of just getting that anxious effect, and it's a high that wears off really quick. So that's why a lot of people consume vape distillate carts at a faster rate. So live resin, in general, 100% right, man. Flash frozen. it's really just preserving that precious point of when the terpenes are the freshest, and it's like that just unmistakable nose before it cures. When it changes into that cured smell, that's a little more maybe sedative or something that is it's just captured at this prime moment. So what we do for our sauce carts and what we specialize is, it's a proprietary process that utilizes diamonds in sauce. So we grow diamonds for anywhere from like a week to 2 weeks. If you're not familiar with diamonds and sauce, it's a giant jar with THCA crystalline structures and a cannabinoid rich sauce. Now, some folks separate that layer of terpenes that you're talking about, and they introduce that into a cart, and that viscous terpene layer is what is the live resin. Now, most of those carts, since the viscosity is so viscous, it burns really, really rapidly. And so you'll consume it a lot faster. What we do at Headchange is a proprietary process in which there's no separation. The diamonds are literally formulated into a liquid state without separating any of the other cannabinoids, any of the other terpene-rich formula, into a less viscous sauce that we then put into our carts directly. There's no adulteration. There's no separation. There is no added terpenes.
How do you liquefy crystals, though? Proprietary. Okay.
So there's some processes. Everybody's going to call it something different. There's some companies that are like, it's liquid live resin. Everybody has their own way of doing it. We just have a special way that really doesn't burn off any of the terps, and it keeps it really strong. I think the thing that I always like sell people on when I'm doing in stores, and you probably see me do it, is if you have a patient who's like, I want to try dabbing, but I don't have that chemistry set up that is a dab rig. A Headchange 510 threaded sauce cart is a dab in a pen. It hits like a dab, tastes like a dab, feels like a dab. And my mission as an individual, and what I try to bring to the table here, is to try to get everybody to try a dab. I don't think that there's a single person that is not capable of finding a dab experience that is enjoyable.
I think you need to have a dab. You haven't had one since we started
sitting
down and talking. You don't have to ask, man.
Okay,
you just grab your stuff and talk.
Cool. It helps me. It helps me get where I need to.
So what he's hanging on to right now is a Peak.
Yes, so this is a Puffco Peak. I actually, shout out MrBonsai.net. I mod mine with an aluminum nitrate insert. It allows it to produce a much richer vapor cloud at a low temp. So I use mine at a very low vapor setting on the blue. Still produces a very rich cloud.
Now you're doing a little stirring right there. Once you exhale, I want you to explain what you're doing right there.
So essentially what I'm doing is taking the oil that is vaporizing in this chamber, and I'm using this multi-directional air cap and the oxygen that I'm inhaling to spin the oil around the area of what some people call like a banger, the chamber, the area in which it's being vaporized. This atomizer setup from Peak can be modded. And so like I said, I use aluminum nitrate. By spinning that vapor around using the air, you're spreading the dab and getting a more surface area without like puddling. So you're going to get a flavorful and also vapor rich smoke. Sometimes you'll get a really thick white cloud, but it tastes very like burnt, or almost like it burnt is the best way to describe it. By doing that, it's also like cooling it and just making it spread more. So.
Is that the same way I see people use marbles inside the banger?
Yes, exactly. So like a terp slurper, or a some sort of marble that you're putting into a banger. It's the same idea. You're just spreading the surface area of the oil, so that you're getting less like, I don't know how to call it. I just call it spotting, where it gets really black and nasty because it's sitting there burning up in one spot. You know what I mean? You're spreading it around so it's burning and vaporizing evenly.
And at that point, you need to clean things.
Yeah, so then the next point of it, I don't usually do it right after the dab because sometimes it's too hot and makes a stinge. I do a nice little top of the Puffco, I tend to do big dabs, so I get oil everywhere, and try to keep a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on me at all times. I keep them in these little things.
What is that?
Yeah, so this is a isopropyl alcohol little wash kit. So I'll sit here, press it down, carry a little bit of ISO with me. If I get oil on the side of my rig or a mouthpiece or something, just if I'm wanting to potentially let somebody else try a Puffco.
Sure.
It's a really good way to sanitize it instantly. So, with Puffcos and with any sort of dab device, it's really important to clean it regularly because unlike an iron skillet, it's not like the flavor stays there and it gets better and better. It's just literally just worse and worse and worse and making the quality of your tool worse and worse and worse. So I'm a PSA to everyone out there. Clean your rigs.
How long have you been using that iron skillet? Because that's a great reference.
I don't know. A couple of years. I think of it as it's hard to get people to understand sometimes like why. It's like, I love this. I understand that dabbing is cool, but like, why do I have to have my banger clean? Why do I need to make sure that I clean my bong water or my rig water regularly? Why do I have to because the parts of it that you enjoy, the things that we work really hard to preserve, like that flavor and the medicinal components, are ruined whenever you have a piece of hardware that's just not functioning. If it burns it up too much, if it's got old residual on it, that is because a lot of people don't know. They'll be like, oh, well, every time I light up my banger, it just starts smoking again. And I'm like, well, yeah, you didn't clean it out the last time. So it's just habit. You know what I mean? For me, I've invested a lot into like dab lifestyle, hash culture. And so a lot of these things just become like second nature. Like I keep ISO on me because I have ruined 25 shirts with dab stains, you know what I mean? So it's a common thing to just have shout and ISO on deck, Well,
that's a smart thing. You must have been a Boy Scout.
Yeah, I was a Boy Scout.
There we go. Yeah. Now I want to break this book out right here because it's the Big Book of Terps. If you all haven't seen this before, I highly recommend getting it, especially for all you connoisseurs out there. It's going to allow you a lot of knowledge you didn't have before. And I brought this out because I want to specifically talk about a terpene in one of your sauce carts that we just got at Field State. I hadn't heard of it, and I had to hit the Big Book of Terps.
Yeah.
Philandering.
Yes.
Philandering. Tell me about philandering.
It's like I said, I think every week scientists are coming up with a new, discovering. Whenever you run a chromatogram on like a general terpene profile, I think there's like 128 spikes. We identify like 12 of them primarily through these. So I don't claim to be like a terpene expert. I know a little bit. I think it's mood elevating. Is it not? It's a mood elevating.
Well, according to this book, potential uses in medicine: breast and prostate cancer treatment for liver cancer, treatment for leukemia. It's an analgesic, accelerated MRSA-infected wound healing, and an antibacterial. Now, these are all studies that the author of this book has been able to go out there and find. Now, if you want, you can do your own research, find out if that's actually a study article, what have you. But we've been using this quite a bit to educate our patients because they've been coming to us now saying, what's the terp profile? Not how high is the THC percentage?
That's awesome. That's great. Clearly shows that your educational efforts have been succeeding, and that's cool. That's it's like CBG. It sounds like it's got a lot of it's more like a cannabinoid than it is like a terpene. It seems like it's pretty strong. What strain? What cultivar did you see that come in on?
I'd have to go to the Field State website, which I have the capability of doing right here, as long as it doesn't take up too much time. While I'm doing this, do you want to take another dab? Yeah, sure. Dude, please, you don't have to ask here.
No, so we've been doing a lot of, we've been doing solventless R&D production, finally getting it into a commercial availability. So Headchange Solventless will be available mid-September. So it's been a really nice treat for me getting to do R&D on solventless, just because it's, I don't want to say my preferred, but it is, quickly becoming a lot of people's, I think, primary means of consumption for some hash heads out there.
Grape Berry Haze.
Oh yes, you just got that. So,
you just got that.
So that is a new cultivation partner as well. We work with Robust, which is a field state partner a lot, and I believe that that drop utilized blueberry milk in it, which is a strain that we get from them. I don't quote me on it because I don't have my pharmacopoeia. It used to be really good. And
that's all right.
I could tell you all 100. I think we're at like 200 different.
So okay, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I really want to quickly ask you about synthetic cannabinoids because you mentioned D8, D10. We're starting to see these pop up more and more, especially because they are legal, but a lot of times they aren't necessarily regulated. And it feels like with these cannabinoids, they are flying the plane while it is still being built. Oh my God, new cannabinoid, rush it to market, and we'll figure out what the effects are later on.
Yeah. It's a really good assessment. I think it goes back to, again, like the identification. So what actually happens is that a scientist identifies a cannabinoid. They say, this spike that I see, this chromatograph, this is D10. We're seeing it consistent enough. This is D10. Is anybody smoking D10 in an isolated or distillated, like a refined form enough to see long-term effects or anything? Is there a standard that can even really reference if it is D10 or D8 or just CBD?
But are these safe? I mean, THCP, THCJD, they're coming out with new stuff constantly, but is it safe?
Safe, it being, subjective to the individual. It's definitely unregulated. And it's like beyond unregulated. I mean, like in the hemp side of space, I have seen crazy operations of people that just have very low budget operations and will attempt to produce these sophisticated cannabinoids. They're made using chemical reactions. There's not like a D10 heavy cultivar out there or like
because these are all minor cannabinoids.
Minor reagents that are usually made in a reaction utilizing some sort of chemical catalyst. So, I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that say right less, there, right? Say less. Yeah, say less. All right. We're going to have to wrap things up, man, which means I have to get to our thank yous.
Yes.
First, I got to thank Utopia Experience. You guys are phenomenal for letting us use this studio. The show would not be what it is without you guys. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, everybody here for that. Thank you also to my clothing sponsor. Today, it's sanctioned again. Check it out, Nomad Yoga. You're going to want to get this. Go down to Sanction down in the Foundry. It's where I got my shoes, and y'all know I like to put my feet up in the air. Not today. I'm giving up on that. And then finally, I'd like to thank my episode sponsor, The Iconic Male. They've got 2 locations, one in Creve Coeur, one in Baldwin. That's where I go to. Men, you want to get pampered, go down to the Iconic Male. You walk in, they have a nice little lounge area. They got liquor. They've got beer for you while you wait, which you can take to your station. They do full body waxing. They do ears, nostrils, eyebrows. Men need to be pampered. Guys, you want to be pampered? Go down to the Iconic Male. And lastly, I've got to thank my guest for today, Cory Sanson. Cory, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for being on this show. Thank you for bringing your knowledge, your expertise to here. It's only going to increase the production value. I hope our guests and our audience members learned a bunch from you today, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you again.
Right on. We'll see you next time, everybody. Have a great night.